The big Xbox showcase was a few weeks ago, and Xbox console owners, they felt vindicated. Xbox is back. Phil Spencer and co, they were delivering, providing the magic, all of these games, all these great games, unless you were turned off by the DEI overdose, which I was, I'm sure many other people are, but aside from that, everything's supposedly going right for Xbox. Well, I'll be honest, I think that it went well from a Xbox as a third-party publisher standpoint, but for console owners who think the future of the Xbox console is bright, I'm not so sure. I truly believe the rumors suggesting that eventually the Xbox console won't exist as it currently is. It might technically be there, but it won't really be a competitor anymore to the PS5, the PC. It's just a box that will exist so Microsoft don't have to admit it's a failure and refund everyone's libraries or anything like that. But the Xbox console, I don't think it has a big future. A lot of leaks, rumors really do suggest that. The sales suggest that. The console sales have stagnated. And this has been reinforced recently by a rumor involving Black Myth Wukong. Now, this is an upcoming third-party game that was meant to launch on every major platform, PC, Xbox, PS5. But we've learned recently that it is getting delayed for Xbox itself. Now, I don't really have a horse in this race. I don't own an Xbox, I don't own a PS5 either, and I don't plan to. My interest is more in what would this mean for gaming if Xbox ceased to exist, if all of these problems they're having, if that's where that leads, because are Sony still going to release everything on PC, or they consolidate more on their console if they don't have major competition? Xbox now as sort of a major third-party publisher in that instance, would they still look to make single-player games, or would they go all in on live service? I still truly believe Game Pass only really works if they focus on live service, which is why I see it as a bad thing for gaming in the long run, but there are a lot of possibilities that come to mind, and just in terms of the drama around Black Myth Wukong not coming to Xbox, I'll go over the reasons why, what's happening, but to give you some context, this game was announced originally, it was marketed as the first big Chinese-developed AAA single-player game. I think that's what it was. I'm sure the Chinese market has had internally developed multiplayer games and things like that. I know that region's very big on their microtransactions, for instance. So this was kind of sold to us as being almost a Souls-like, it seemed like, and I thought it was just going to be kind of niche, probably nothing more than a few million copies sold, but I was actually surprised at the amount of interest this game is generating, because, for instance, top wish-listed games on Steam, Black Myth Wukong is at the very top. It's beating out Hollow Knight Silksong, which has been on the wish list for like 10 years or something. Every friggin' showcase that gets announced, are we going to see Silksong? Everyone's talking about it. It's beating out even Bloodlines 2, can you believe it? That game, that's going to shape up really well. But Black Myth Wukong, top of the Steam wishlists, even sales, it's doing extremely well. And it's not even out, it's coming out in August. It's 7th on the best-selling games. And I mean, to me, that's a little bit of a worry because so many people are obviously pre-ordering it. No one ever learns, oh my god, new game, looks like a Dark Souls. I'm going to buy it up front when I really know nothing. This isn't a proven studio. I think they've made like one small live service in the past. It's their first single-player game of this size, and yet everyone's throwing money at it because of some cinematic trailers, basically. Kind of pathetic. But at least they're getting this one and not something else that looks scummier, at the very least. But even still, I do just want to say, people are saying it's like a Souls-like. For me, one of the big things I love about Dark Souls is the exploration. Everyone talks about difficulty, the bosses and builds and all of that. All cool, but I've always loved exploring the areas, finding secrets, the level design. I don't think that's going to be in this. There was a preview. It is IGN. Maybe we take it with a grain of salt, but this seems pretty objective, where it says, the levels themselves in Black Myth Wukong were fairly linear, with a couple of branching points that led to some sort of treasure or item pickup. So that to me just suggests if you want to play this for like a full Dark Souls experience, I don't think it's going to be that. It seems to be more of a boss rush, with maybe a couple of nook and crannies to explore. So just something to think about if you're excited for it. But the point of sort of showing how well it's doing is there's a lot of interest in this game, which is going to be upsetting Xbox fans who've been awaiting it. Because again, hotly anticipated Black Myth Wukong is delayed on Xbox Series XS, and Microsoft has since responded. Now, the reason, according to the developers, why it wasn't going to release at launch on Xbox is because of that situation here, Xbox Series XS. If you're not familiar with it, which is fine because the marketing around Xbox Series, it's freaking confusing unless you look into it. What is this going to mean to you? Series XS? What is going on? It sounds like the Wii U. Just so you're aware, there are two Xboxes. The Series X is like the equivalent to the PS5, the powerful console. But Xbox decided to release an Xbox Series S, which is like a lower spec, cheaper version, more affordable, and they thought that could be their point of difference, so that they had a cheaper alternative, for instance, to the PS5. However, they made a rule when they released these consoles, which was if you make a game for Xbox, the features in that game have to be the exact same on both the Series X, the powerful console, and the Series S, the weaker one. So you can't just make a game and you release it on the Series X, the proper one, and that has everything, and then the Series S, okay, there's some features missing, like maybe split-screen multiplayer and little things like that, and you just release sort of the dumbed-down, lesser version and get away with that. Xbox say no. Even though the consoles, one's weaker, one's stronger, you've got to have the exact same features. You could downgrade sort of graphics, but that's really it. This has caused problems because Baldur's Gate 3, it was the same situation. It did not launch on Xbox. It was on PC, it was on PS5, it came to Xbox later. And the reason officially was Larian Studios were having trouble getting everything running on that Series S, the weaker Xbox console. That's a big issue because that game sold so well, Xbox lost out on that, and even when it eventually releases, because it was so popular and so great, I'm sure many people found another way to play it. Whether they bought a PS5 or, hey, I don't usually use my computer for gaming, I'll make an exception for Baldur's Gate. I'm sure there were many people like that. And then it meant less sales for Xbox when it eventually released on the platform. So this has happened multiple times, and it's happening again for Black Myth Wukong. Now, this isn't all of the drama. It's one thing that it's not releasing on the console. And just so this is clear, the devs behind Wukong gave an official statement actually clarifying, yes, the reason this won't launch on Xbox is because of the Series S being weak and it all being quite difficult to develop for. That's an official statement. It's not a rumor or anything. Wasn't started by Sony fans and people are just dunking on Xbox. Nothing like that. Official statement. Microsoft have since responded to that. And they said, we're excited for the launch of Black Myth Wukong on Series XS and are working with Game Science to bring the game to our platforms. We can't comment on the deals made by our partners with other platform holders, but we remain focused on making Xbox the best platform for gamers, and great games are at the center of that. Yes, I'm sure from all the great games you've provided in the last 15 years. But the key part of it is this sentence: we can't comment on the deals made by our partners with other platform holders. That's really the centerpiece of this drama, because the statement implies that perhaps another platform holder such as Sony may have paid money to the Black Myth Wukong devs to keep the game on Xbox. Now, most people have seen through that, and they think this is bullshit, because it really sounds like Xbox gave a vague statement that implies maybe Sony paid money for it, or there was some cash under the table. That's the reason that poor Xbox fans aren't getting this game. It's kind of a we're the victim statement. That's what it sounds like. But there's no facts suggesting this, and because they were vague, but it really seems like Xbox made this statement as damage control to cover up the fact that the Xbox Series S is causing developers issues, and they just can't make their games, especially this late into the generation, now that it's been a few years. They can't make them compatible with both Xbox Series X, the powerful one, and the weaker S. And rather than Xbox acknowledging that and saying, look, we understand the frustration for Xbox owners, for the devs, maybe we'll assist them, They instead seem to try and point the finger at maybe Sony, other people, and tried to create the narrative that maybe money changed hands. Again, for instance, Sony paid the devs to keep it off Xbox. But keep this in mind, the devs gave an official statement literally saying the reason it is not on Xbox day one is because of Xbox Series S issues. Why would they have said that if there was an exclusivity deal for consoles? It's still going to release on PC no matter what. We're purely talking the consoles here, whether or not Sony paid money to make it a Sony console exclusive, but there's no evidence of that whatsoever. If it was true, if Sony had done that and they wanted it to be exclusive, why wasn't it at the state of play? Why weren't they doing sort of marketing material, really pushing it? They haven't said a word about Black Myth Wukong. Sony haven't talked about it, so this doesn't make sense. This just seems to be more typical incompetence from the Xbox leadership team, who don't want to walk back a bad policy. The whole issue here is just the idea that games developed for the Series X and S have to have all of the same features. If that rule didn't exist, they would have got Baldur's Gate 3 day one. Larian wouldn't have had to fuck around for months getting that working. They could have spent more time on patches for everyone, for the PC and other platforms as well. Instead, they have to muck around because of this dumb Series S policy. Just acknowledge it's a weaker console, it is more affordable, I'm not even saying it's a bad thing, but don't screw over the devs by forcing them to go along with this. The Xbox console, it already has enough problems for it, especially sales-wise. People are moving to PC, PS5, and this is just going to hasten that when games aren't launching day one on the Xbox. And there are a lot of copers. Ever since Microsoft gave this statement, regular people who aren't biased pretty much saw through it and just saw it as an excuse from Xbox. But you have these people going, Sony is anti-consumer and anti-gamer. Now, this statement I would agree with. I don't care for Sony. They've made a lot of shit decisions, especially with their PC ports and statements, sort of treating PC gamers like second-class citizens, where it's like, buy a PS5, a PS6 if you want to play the sequel, because PC gamers, you won't be getting the sequel to Horizon or whatever for 3 years. Just sort of dumb statements that won't really make PC gamers actually like Sony or want to buy their content. But when you put it there in the Xbox forum, it reads like Xbox are pro-consumer. And Sony are the evil ones. We've got to stop them. Come on, Phil. Come on, Xbox. Show us that you love your customers like we know you do. Well, Phil's an empty suit. He doesn't care about you. Everything he says, it's a PR statement. It's designed to sell more Game Pass subscriptions and nothing really else. He doesn't even care about the Xbox console. It's dying a slow death. And he's just not saying that because he wants you to keep spending, because they don't want to lose all the Xbox revenue overnight. You're being taken for a ride, basically. And this continues with someone saying, if that is the case, Sony is doing an even more scummy move by having the developer and their competition take the fall for a secret deal like this. They would know fully well how the narrative will go. Sometimes it looks like we're really back to PS2, early PS3 era PlayStation in terms of attitude due to their market dominance. Well, to be fair, PC is much more dominant than it was in that PS2 era space. So the idea that it's going to go back to Sony, the market leaders, no competition, that's bullshit. PC was like dead in that period. It's now doing extremely well. There are publishers like Capcom who say it's their biggest platform. So that's not going to happen just because Xbox might disappear. And again, this quote that there's a secret deal going on, who is that benefiting? Why would Sony be keeping it secret? If it was a console exclusive, they'd be shouting that from the rooftops. Again, it would have been at the state of play. What do you think Sony's motivation would actually be for making this a secret deal, for signing something in a back room so no one knows about it? You must think that they did this to purely piss off Xbox Reddit users, Twitter fans, that Sony want you to know that they're the villain and you made a very bad decision buying an Xbox and now you're going to be sorry. That could be the only reason that they would keep this completely private. That must be it. I really shouldn't, but I kind of feel sorry for Xbox fans right now because the Black Myth devs, they were open and honest. They said we're having trouble creating this game for the Series S. So we have to delay it for all Xbox users. We're sorry. They're doing exactly what the Baldur's Gate 3 devs did. They're being open about it. And then because Microsoft don't want to be embarrassed, they create this totally false narrative with a cryptic couple of sentences suggesting platform wars, that Sony paid money or someone paid money under the table. This is why you're not getting the game on Xbox at launch. It's untrue. It just further suggests that the Xbox brand, especially in the console side of things, it's gone completely down the toilet. And I really believe, with all this happening, games not launching on Xbox day one, not the only one, by the way, there's a Capcom collection coming out. It won't release on Xbox. There's plenty like that. I don't see how the console can survive. Why someone looking for their first ever gaming platform, why they would choose Xbox. Because they're just making all the wrong decisions. Game Pass, sure, but it's probably going to go up in price. And I think over time, for it to be sustainable, it's going to be full games as a service. Because really the only way it can work is if the games you're getting on Game Pass are ones that probably should have been free to play, and then they make all their money from microtransactions, battle passes. If it's just releasing single-player games, no microtransactions, I don't understand how they would ever get their money back. It sounds good. I'm just saying in reality, I don't think that will last, and Game Pass will go to shit as well. As for Black Myth Wukong, hopefully it's good, given so many people pre-ordered it. If it's crap, it's just going to teach people, hey, let's make a Souls-like cinematic trailer, make it look flashy, and we'll just bring in all the money before it even releases, and then people will find out it sucks later. So I hope it ends up being good, but given it doesn't really seem to have level design, I'm a bit skeptical. I'll certainly be waiting until after it comes out and I can see some real impressions. But this is another Microsoft L, and I'm sure we'll be seeing many more very soon. Thanks so much for listening. I'll see you on the next one. Cheers. Bye.